Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Spin Zone. Here with you on this Wednesday with some day games, with some night games. I'm your host, Spin Doc, and it is great to have everybody here today. We got a whole bunch to get to, so we will start off right from the get go here. And if you are watching this for the first time, please do us a favor. Subscribe to the Daily Bread Network on YouTube. That's where you can find all these shows and all of our other content. Please, if you're not already, follow me at SpinDoc Sports on X. Give the video a like, give it a share. We really do appreciate the love. So we always start by what did we learn? And even though I had no show yesterday, unfortunately had an emergency car situation that I couldn't avoid. So we got a couple things from the last few days to go over from MLB. The first and foremost, is that swing wise and striking out wise, the Angels are just really, really bad. They're just really, really bad. They have supplanted the Rockies as the worst swinging team in Major League Baseball. They are, it's not pretty. It's not pretty at all. King and Cease have torched him for a total of 18 strikeouts over the last 2 days. Cease, we played in VIP last night. That was the easy one. You know, the one thing that I had said too is, so I am a big believer in trying to sniff out and avoid trap lines in baseball. And I do believe that strikeout props do have trap lines, but Dylan Cease at over 7.5 against this Angels team just seemed too easy. However, there are some situations, and this is lesson number number 2 for me from yesterday, was that, you know, it seems chalky. It seems public. Everybody in the world was on the over, as they should have been. But guess what, guys? Chalk wins too. Chalk wins too. Public plays win too. So there are some times where you see a line and kind of like Jack Flaherty the other day, when it was it just didn't look right, didn't match with any of the numbers. But look, like, sometimes it just makes sense, and sometimes you just have to do it. So Dylan Cease was one of those last night. Torched him for 10. He was never in doubt. I think he had 5 in the first 2 2/3 innings, something like that. That sounds about right. Another couple things that we learned is that sometimes teams get a tax that they really, really shouldn't. And there are a few teams that get taxed for a pitcher where they get moved down when they're on the road. Toronto is one of those teams. So the Blue Jays are a low strikeout team, but last night Shane Baz was down to a 4.5, and that just didn't make any sense. They had moved him down. There wasn't enough past history to really make a discernation, but looking at that lineup, if you go just by strikeout percentages, if you went just by home strikeout percentages, strikeout percentage against righties, all of those things said under. However, when you ran it hitter by hitter and you look at the contact metrics, it just screamed like he had a really good chance to hit it. And so I've seen this a few times now on the Blue Jays, and I'm not saying to go take overs against the Blue Jays and take advantage of that, because there are some pitchers that the Blue Jays can really do some damage against. The problem becomes with the Jays is that they have a number of guys at the top of their order who chase, and they have a number of guys at the bottom of their order. So it's extremes. So you have a high amount of zone contact at the top of their lineup. You have a low amount of zone contact for some of their bottom hitters usually. And a pitcher like Shane Baz could really take advantage of that. So those are situations that I like to look for to avoid. I had Baz on my finalist list, ended up fading him, did not play him. And it turned out to be the right decision because he obviously got 6 yesterday. Last but not least is from that exact same game. I've talked about this a million times before, is that catchers matter. Catchers can matter so much, especially when it's a catcher's first time working with a pitcher. We saw this yesterday. Barrios, based on the metrics, based on the numbers, based on the lineup that the Rays put out there with Walls, with Caballero, with Missner, with a few other guys, like 4.5 should have been the easiest number in the world to clear. However, and I was ready to go on it, but I looked and I always check this, his own team's lineup, and I saw that for the first time this season, Heineman was catching him. Alejandro Kirk has been his catcher for a lot of the time he's been in Toronto. It was the first time in Heineman's career he's caught Barrios. Barrios can be kind of a tricky guy to catch with that slurve that he throws and like when to work it in with the sinkers. So I also went back and checked at Barrios' first games with first-time catchers, and many of them did not go very well from a strikeout perspective. So that was on a VIP finalist list. We crossed that one off. Turned out to be a good decision. And I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. What I'm saying it for is to get a watch for those situations, is that as long as the catcher has caught the guy at least once or twice in his career and the K disparity isn't like gigantic. So for example, if you have like 2 catchers on a team that have caught a guy, let's just say as we get into the season 10 times, and if you see one has like a 30% K percentage, the other one has like a 20% K percentage, that's pretty significant. Unless the guy with the 30 was his catcher when he faced like the Rockies, the Angels, those sort of teams, then there's probably something to it. If not, you can probably let it go and just assume that both of those guys know how to catch that pitcher. Zach Wheeler is another pitcher who's like that. When Real Muto's not his catcher, his strikeout percentage does go down pretty significantly. And that's with anybody else, because some catchers just know how to catch certain pitchers. But you always want to be on the lookout for, is this the catcher's first time in his career? Not even necessarily that season. Like if he caught him last year and just in the rotation, he gets him now, you can go back and look at some metrics. Their Baseball Reference has some really good metrics on their splits about that. You can look at that, and that can tell you a lot of good information. But as long as he's caught him at least one time, the danger situations to watch out for are a catcher who has not caught a pitcher ever in his career. Those are ones where you have to stop and think about how much chemistry are they going to have? Is he going to know what kind of pitch that this guy likes to throw, etc. One exception to that can be, well, at least like one of the guys that we're talking about today, like if he had a first-time catcher, is that like a guy like Tarek Skubal. If they're just straight out, flat out strikeout pitchers, you can just assume that the pitcher can pitch through that. Maybe it'll make an impact or a difference on the higher lines, but you always want to look, if a guy is an average to below average strikeout pitcher, anytime he's working with a catcher for the first time in his career, it's always a little shaky to try to take an over in that spot. I'm not saying I would take an under automatically, but it's hard to take an over. So those are the things that I wanted to share, that kind of like what I learned watching yesterday. Just wanted to give a shout out to Roger. Good morning to you as well, my friend. Laddered up Robbie Ray. I love it. Yeah, Robbie Ray's line was a little auspicious yesterday. Was 4.5, which the Diamondbacks are another team that sometimes get that tax when maybe they don't necessarily deserve it. What I'll say, though, is they deserve it at home. I've talked on here a few times about how their home strikeout percentage is about 8 to 10% lower than their road strikeout percentage. So they're really they're a team that has a lot of disparities there. So you can get some value from them on the road. Robbie Ray, I said this in VIP last night. I was just off of him. So congrats, Roger. I'm glad you cashed. I said the Robbie Ray experience was in full effect, because I think he had like 45 or 46 pitches through like 2 1/3 innings, 3 strikeouts, 3 walks. That is the Robbie Ray experience. With Blake Snell on the shelf this year, he has become the new Blake Snell this year, where there will always be points during his start, whether you're on the over or under anything, where you feel like it's in the bag, and other times where you feel like it's a hopeless lost cause. When you're signing up to take a Robbie Ray prop, that's just what you have to deal with. There's a lot of variance, and it can be volatile, but it can also be very profitable, as you saw with Roger. So I'm glad you hit him up, Roger. I was personally off of it in VIP. I wanted to take the free lesson to see what the drop to 4.5 meant. And I think it was a little bit overvalued because of some of the low strikeout totals the Diamondbacks have had. However, when you compare them, you have to remember they were at home and they were also against right-handed pitchers. So if you're going just straight by trends, like they've only struck out to starting pitchers 4 times, once in the last however many days, blah, 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 blah. Like those sort of things that the public usually plays, it would look like, oh, maybe they don't think he's going to pitch very well. But when you dove deeper, over was definitely the right side to be on. So like I said, glad you cashed, Roger, and good morning, and thank you. Mom Who Bets, good morning to you as well. Thank you so much for being here. All right, we got 3 pitchers to talk about today. If there's any other ones that we don't cover, please make sure to drop them in the chat. Or if you do have any that you personally like, please feel free to drop those in as well. I'm going to share we're going to get our swing metrics up. This is the swing metrics as of a day or 2 ago. Not much has changed, so we're going to roll with that one. I usually update this usually around once a week, somewhere around there, because things don't change that much. But the first pitcher we are going to talk about is an afternoon game. We're going to talk about Will Warren from the Yankees, striking guys out at a 25.9% clip, a 10%, walking guys at 10%, and he gets the Mariners in an early afternoon game, or late afternoon if you're on the East Coast, if you're a Yankees fan, but early afternoon game out west. And this one is set pretty much where I thought it would be. You have an over 5.5 at a nice little plus price, and you have the under at 5.5 at -150. So first thing, I've talked about No Under Island before. The Mariners have a rental property on No Under Island for me. They do not have permanent residence. What I mean by that is they're taking an under on them is not completely 100%, not even a question out of it, but it would have to take a heck of a situation for me to want to consider an under for this team. And this is not one of those games, nor is Warren one of those pitchers. So the under for me is completely out. So we're looking at over, or we're looking at pulling him down to an over 4.5 and pairing him with something that can maybe get you some plus money. So let's dive in. Will Warren, to this 5.5 number, he is 2-3 over his last 5 starts. However, those 3 that he missed, 2 were against the same team, and all of them he got exactly 5. He torched the Athletics for 7, who are a much lower strikeout team than the Mariners, and he also torched the Rays, who by the numbers are a lower strikeout team, for 8. Now, that was the second time that he saw them. They only got 1 the last time, and he got torched, which is what the numbers said. So Warren has been a really he's been kind of up and down. However, he does have strikeout stuff. His sweeper is his main out pitch. He throws it 24.9% of the time, generates a 32.1% whiff rate. It's got over 3,000 RPMs of spin. That is one of the higher spin rates among pitchers in Major League Baseball. And when you're thinking about where he works on our clock, he works with a 4-seamer and a sinker and a changeup. So all of his setup pitches are in that 1 to 3 range up here. His curve and his sweeper, which are his outs, are down here. So he works on the diagonal parts of the clock, which is what a lot of pitchers without a dominating and overpowering fastball will do. Because his fastball only averages 93-ish miles an hour, he can run it up to 94, 95. Now we look at contact and we see that Warren is in the zone at exactly league average. However, it's his zone contact that has been very stellar. And part of the reason is because with the way that that sweeper spins, he can paint it on the corners of the zone. And so when you're throwing a 93-mile-an-hour fastball, 86-mile-an-hour changeup up here, and you can paint a sweeper that goes this way across and can paint that bottom lower corner, you can get a lot of swings and misses. So zone contact overall for the year has been a real issue for the Mariners, which is what attracted me to this one to begin with. Mariners over the last 14 days, about the last couple of weeks, they are swinging above league average in the zone. They're making contact about 1% under league average. Now, when we go to our lineup, which right now is 5 lefties, 4 righties, the one thing that I will warn you about with this one is if you want to be on the over, Warren has had trouble striking out lefties. And looking at the lefties he's faced a mishmash of lefties that are tough to strike out and lefties that he probably should strike out. So to the tune of 21.9% versus lefties and 31.9% versus righties. So I'm going to break this one down from a lineup perspective by the lefties and the righties. And we're going to see if we can get or find a pathway to 6. So for those righties with the 31.9% to begin with, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for zone swing and a lack of zone contact. So the first righty that is projected to be in this lineup is Julio Rodriguez, and Julio Rodriguez does have a ton of zone swing and not a lot of zone contact. So I got him for 1. Randy Arozarena does not swing that much in the zone, but also does not make contact. So he's probably close. I would actually put him down for 1. Dylan Moore and Williamson, who are the projected to be in the 8 and 9 hole. Moore doesn't make contact but he's below league average in the zone and swing. So that could be another one. And then Williamson does actually have some pretty good zone contact. So from those righties, I'm coming up with 3.5 to 4. I'm going to probably assign a value of 3.5 for this one because there's a lack of past history, really nothing else to go off of. So now I got to go over to the lefties. And what I really need to see with the lefties, and this is how I always, because I've actually started capping Warren in some pretty intricate detail because of this disparity. What I want to see is if these lefties, if there's enough zone contact or zone whiff, I guess I should say, where the disparity he's had in striking them out is going to put us over the top. Because with only 4 righties in this lineup, if this is what they go with, it's really hard, even at plus money, to say, okay, 4 guys, he's going to get them all once, and he's also going to get 2 of them twice. That's a big ask for a pitcher on the road and for a team finishing up a West Coast road trip. So he's going to have to get at least 2 of these lefties, and I go down this lineup, and JP Crawford's going to be tough. I'm not considering it a dead spot, but him and Polanco are going to be tough. So we probably got to cross those off. Cal Raleigh can be gotten because he swings a lot in the zone, and he also doesn't make contact very much. He's at 77%, which is significantly under average. Rowdy Tellez can also be had. He makes contact at under 80% as well. And Leody Taveras is the last one, and he makes contact under 80% as well. So I think that if this is the lineup that the Mariners go with, I would prefer one more. I would actually prefer Crawford or Polanco to be out. Those are the 2 where if one of them is out, there's really nobody else that the Mariners can put in that has that zone contact and or is a lefty that I would think, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and go with this one. So Polanco and Crawford are the 2 that if one of them is out, I think you can very, very easily play the over on this one. But if this is the lineup that they run, and if you get Rodriguez, Arozarena, and Moore for sure, then I think that there's enough to at least try a half unit on the over at plus money. I'm not convinced that yet without seeing a lineup that's going to be either more righties or more guys with less zone contact. I'm not 100% convinced that it's worth a full unit play, but I will go ahead and say, if this is the official lineup, I will take a small shot on the over at plus money because of the lack of zone contact that is across this lineup. Umpire Bruce Dreckman for this one. It's pretty neutral. It's not going to have a whole lot of impact on this game. So officially, if you have to play it now, I would do a half unit on the best plus price you can get at Will Warren over 5.5. And because I do think that there's a world where he gets all the righties at least once, could get one of them maybe twice. That gets you to 5. That gets you to 5, and then you only need 1. And there's enough zone whiff among those lefties where it could happen. You especially think that because when you go and look at Warren's other props, you do see it's not really set up like he's going to have like, oh my God, go out and show up and have a day. But his outs are set 15.5. That's pretty much what they've been. He usually only gets about the 5th inning. They usually ask for 5. Earn runs 2.5 heavily juiced to the under. That's what it's been on the road. And hits 4.5 heavily juiced to the under. That's what it's been on the road. So everything else is pretty normal. So in closing with Warren, half unit on under 5.5 at plus money. Has to be plus money. If it's juiced, even if it's minus 105, don't do it. You're only doing this at plus money. If Crawford and or Polanco are not in the lineup, which I would expect them both to be, but if either one is not in the lineup, especially if they are replaced by there's a few guys in the lineup that they could replace them with, then I might be willing to go up to a full unit. But I can promise you, if that happens, you're probably going to get a slightly juiced 5.5. So that is Mr. Warren. The second one is the play that the whole universe will be on. Everybody will be talking about this one. If you do a search on X, you'll find every capper with every number of followers is going to take Tarik Skubal today, and I get why you want to do it. Tarik Skubal, the lefty, striking guys out at a 32.6% clip, walking guys at 2.7%. That's just gross. Tarik Skubal has been absolutely dominant this year, one of the early leaders for the Cy Young, rightfully so. He gets the Red Sox at 640, and this line is 7.5 for a reason. Minus 118 versus minus 106. That's pretty much the same no matter where you look. Tarik Skubal, I'll tell you right now, the only way to play this is over. The Red Sox have a pretty permanent residency on No Under Island. They just have way, way too much zone whiff for the season, as you see down here, especially over the last few weeks. The highest swing rate in the zone and the lowest contact rate in the zone. Well, how does that match up with Tarik Skubal? Oh, it's like manna from heaven, man. Because Tarik Skubal spends 58% of his time in the zone. And that's one of the highest amounts of any pitcher going today. But he only allows 69.3% zone contact of pitchers that have enough pitches that would qualify for this. That is one of, if not the lowest zone contact rate. Remember, MLB starting pitcher average for zone contact allowed is 82. And Tarik Skubal for his career is 76. So he's at 69 this year. He is just absolutely blowing this ball by guys. Lefties, righties, it doesn't really make a difference. Tarik Skubal is blowing them away. Now, you look at this lineup, which is 3 lefties and 5 righties, and with the Red Sox and with Skubal, it's always about zone. Zone, 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 zone. So we go and we look, and we see that Duran does have good zone contact. Devers will strike out. I'm almost convinced of that. And Bregman has good zone contact. After that, it gets fun. So you have Campbell swings a decent amount in the zone, doesn't make contact. You have Story swings a bunch in the zone and doesn't makes below average contact. Weiler Abreu swings a lot in the zone, does make contact, but can be gotten on chase. Sogard, if he is in, which I would think that he might be, has a limited sample size for this year, but overall for his career is pretty average with zone contact. And Rafaela and Narvaez, who are projected to tail up the lineup, both have zone contact in the 70s. So you have a pitcher who lives in the zone. You have a team who is the worst zone contact team in Major League Baseball, and also who swings the most in that zone. Now, the other thing that I want to look for, because Tarek Skubal's four-seam fastball is an out pitch for him. I talked about how some pitchers use it as a pitch to set guys up, to get fouls. Not for Tarek Skubal. 33.3% whiff rate, which is well above pitcher average. And the pitch average is 98, and he runs it up to 100. So I look at this Red Sox team across this lineup for the year, and what I'm looking for is whiff rates that are, well, for sure over 25%, but preferably over 30%. And oh my, Devers, almost 40%. You have Narvaez, and you have Rafaela at 38%. You have Narvaez at almost 40%. You have, I think there was one more that I saw there. Yeah, Weiler Abreu at 35%. And Trevor Story is at 27.5. But anyways, Tarek Skubal's main pitch, his four-seam fastball, can get probably 4 or 5 of these guys, just like that, just by blowing it by him. Now, the only thing that I do compare with Skubal is I look at his outs props to see if there's any indication that he might pitch to contact a little bit more to go deeper. The other reason why I say that is because up until his last start, the Tigers did put, I don't want to say training wheels on him, but they did put a cap on him to save him for the latter parts of the season. So they were letting him go basically 5 innings or 90 pitches on the regular. That opened up last game when he torched Texas for 12 and he threw 96 pitches across 7 innings. You look at his outs and you see that it's set at 18.5. I do wait for a lineup. Just because that's just how I operate. I just want to make sure that there's nothing weird going on. But if this is the projected lineup that the Red Sox are going to run, I mean, over is the only way to play this. You know that. Over 7.5, if you want to play it now, official show play. The reason why I brought up Cease and I talked about how, hey, chalk wins too, is this is a chalk play. This is the chalk play. This is a public play. This is everybody who studies a trend sheet and bets publicly is going to be on it. But guess what? Chalk wins too. Now, you might be asking, why is this not set at an 8.5? It is rare for a pitcher to be set at an 8.5. I've seen it with DeGrom during his heyday, when his dominating days. I've seen it with Strider a few times. I've seen a 9.5 once or twice. But you got to remember that when you're thinking about 8 strikeouts over 6 innings, it is a big ask. And it's also a situation where not a whole lot can go wrong, right? Not a whole lot can go wrong. You can't have, God forbid, any kind of cramping or injury or any, basically the pitcher can't wake up on the wrong side of the bed this morning. These are human beings. That can happen. You can't have an umpire that is just not giving him what should be strikes. And so he has to adjust his pitch mix. You can't so many things can go wrong that 8 strikeouts is still a big ask, but there is still value on playing this at -118. I am going to, like I said, I am going to wait for the lineup. I want to make sure that all these guys are in. Now, sometimes the question gets asked, is there anybody that they could put in this lineup to get you off of this? No. But there is a combination of if there's a few lineup changes and if the juice gets out of control, that would make me maybe rethink how I wanted to play Tarek Skubal. So very easily, you can put a half unit now just in anticipation of the -118. The only other thing that might make me pause is if his outs would drop, because they're at 18.5 right now. To that number, he's only hit that twice, but it is at normal juice. So it's not juice to the under even, which tells me that he's probably going to go at least 6 innings, probably 7. And the other thing is that his walks and his hits are what they should be. So if the outs drop, or if the hits won't raise, but if the outs drop or the juice starts moving the wrong way, meaning they're taking more, there's more under stuff coming in, that might give me a little pause as to say, I want to take Skubal down to 7 and pair him with something else. So what I would do right now is I would do a half unit on the over 7.5. I'm waiting for a lineup. If nothing changes with where the lines are set right now from an outs and from the juice perspective on both sides of this strikeout, then I will probably add another half unit. If the Red Sox lineup is not what it's projected, if there's more zone contact challenged guys, then I might ladder. But the same thing with a ladder on a guy like this is what I always advise people on, is that yeah, you can probably ladder him to 9 and get some plus money maybe for a half unit with the right lineup. But when you're talking about ladder and higher than that, I mean, yes, it's a number that he's hit a few times, but 10, 11 strike, like, guys, that's just so many strikeouts. Like, that is so many strikeouts. And then you're in a spot where now, even if you win your main play and you do all kinds of crazy laddering to like 10, 11, whatever, if literally anything goes wrong, let's just even say that the Tigers jump out and get like a 10-0 lead, and he starts pitching more to contact to have a complete game, or they just say, you know what, the bullpen needs some work. We're going to save your arm in a game that we're going to win anyway. All those things can happen. And that's why laddering anything above 9 is always something that I'm like, maybe if you want to put lunch money on it, yeah, fine, go ahead. But that is so many strikeouts and literally nothing can go wrong. So don't just automatically, just see the fresh meat here of Skubal versus the Red Sox and just think, why he got Texas for 12, so that means he's going to have 15 here against Boston. No. The 12 strikeouts is, well, first of all, 9 strikeouts is something he's only done in 3 starts this year. He averages 7.5, so that high of a total is something that doesn't come around very often, which is why it should be bet accordingly. So, and I see Cover Kings is in here. Good morning. Yep. Tarek Skubal over 7.5. Yep. 1 unit on Aaron Nola over 5.5. That's the early game today. I have not seen a weather report for that game. I know that there's still rain that's in the area. I think rain should be cleared out by game time. It looks like it should be cleared by game time. But for me personally, if you're playing it, over is probably the way to do it. But for me personally, I try to just shy away from games with rain, just because if there's any kind of delay for a pitcher more than about 20 to 30 minutes and he's in the middle of his start, then he gets pulled and the wager is still graded, unless you have a really, really nice bookie that says that they'll void it out, but most books won't do that. And Gooner, welcome in, my friend. I will get to yours in just a moment. I'll do that at the end. All right, so that's Tarek Skubal. Last but not least, Nick Lodolo, the lefty, striking guys out at 19.3%, walking guys at a 3.6% clip versus the White Sox. First pitch for this game is a very, very specific, and this is what it is on MLB, 7:14 p.m. Again, that's a very specific first pitch time. Lodolo has an over 5.5 at -128, under at +100. All right. So Nick Lodolo has not been, he's been, especially lately, a guy where he doesn't need to get strikeouts, but he can get strikeouts when he needs them. So some guys, the strikeout, I've talked about this, like Skubal is one, where the strikeout is just part of their repertoire. Is that just getting guys at the plate and forcing guys to swing at stuff is and whiff is part of just their pitching DNA. Not Lodolo. Lodolo can strike guys out, but he doesn't need to. So to this 5.5 number, this has moved up from his last start at Atlanta, where he got 4. He's gotten this 2 out of his last 3 and 3 of his last 5. He's averaging about 5 strikeouts a game. So this line is set pretty correctly and probably where it should be. Now, the one thing about Lodolo that I always use is that for me, it's are guys going to chase? Because with the breaking balls he throws, even though he lives in the zone 51% of the time, he generates a 34.3% chase rate. And that's what happens when you don't have a dominating or overpowering fastball and you do throw a very, very nice curve. So what I'm looking for in this White Sox lineup, which as of right this moment is projected to be no lefties, and 9 righties. It looks like I would be surprised if they did anything but go righty heavy today. Lodolo is striking righties out a little bit more than lefties, but that's also because he hasn't faced very many lefties this year. It's only 20.6%. So I'm looking across this lineup, and what I'm looking for is guys that chase and guys that don't make contact when they do. So Meadroth doesn't chase, who's projected to lead off. Vargas in the 2-hole doesn't chase. Quiero doesn't chase. Robert, I believe Robert does chase and doesn't make contact. So that's a potential candidate. Vaughn chases a lot and makes contact only at league average. So that's another potential candidate. Elko is pretty average. Lennon Sosa and Baldwin are the next 2. And Sosa chases a lot, makes contact. So you can probably chalk those 2 up for 1 combined. And then at the bottom, you do have Michael Taylor, who makes horrendous chase contact. So that's 4. So now you get 4 from the chase. The question then becomes, can Lodolo get enough guys in the zone? Because overall for the year, 86.4% zone contact, which is not very good. I talked about how he doesn't have an overpowering fastball. It only averages about 93-ish. Yeah, he can probably run up to 95, but he also throws a sinker about as much as the fastball, which doesn't generate virtually any whiff. So the question becomes, of the guys that I just talked about, and of the guys that aren't going to chase, is there any possibility of getting any of them in the zone? Meadroth is going to be tough. Vargas is going to be a little tougher. And then going down the lineup, there are only a few guys that I see with the zone whiff that I would think. So I'm coming up with 4. I'm coming up with 4 or 5 for Lodolo, but I am not coming up with 6. If this is the projected lineup, I would not play this one standalone just because the White Sox can be very, very prone to striking out. You see over here on the swing metrics chart, inside the zone as a team, they don't have very good metrics, but they do have a couple guys at the top and at the bottom of their lineup that do have pretty high zone contact. So what I would do with Lodolo is, if this is the lineup that we get, I would look to pull him down to 5 to get 5+ and to pair it with something else. Pull it down to 5, pair it with something else. You can even do, like right now, if you want, you can probably do a half unit now on, say, a Warren and Lodolo, both to get 5. I think that's like plus 130 something on DraftKings. Let me run it real quick. But I think that you can do a 5 for those 2, and that can actually get you, let me just run that real quick. Lodolo and Warren to both get 5. It's plus 168. That might be worth a little bit. I maybe would play it to win a half unit. So like, let's say your unit size is $100. Whatever you have to bet to win $50. That might be a nice little parlay to do for plus money. So that's how I would play those for Lodolo. But overall, across the lineup, Lodolo has been pretty schizo when it comes to striking guys out. And for me, if this is the lineup that they're going to run, there's only about 4 guys in this lineup that chase that he can get pretty easily. And then after that, if Meadroth and Vargas are at the top of the lineup, they become tougher to get. So now you're taking 2 dead spots for a guy that doesn't strike out a whole bunch anyway. So I would pull Lodolo down to 5. I wouldn't totally cross him off your list. If the lineup is different, especially if Meadroth and Vargas are not in at the top, a couple other guys that I would be really, really interested to see in this lineup would be trying to think of other guys that chase, because Robert's already in. Really just, honestly, really, if those 2 are out, one of those 2 are out, then I might be interested in playing this one standalone. All right. So I will go and those are the 3 that I wanted to cover. I will take everybody's some other sides and looks today. I know that Gooner had a question about thoughts on Bailey Ober at under 5.5. It's a little juiced. It is a little juiced. I looked at that one early this morning. It's only slight. Yeah, the juice doesn't bother me as much as his outs are at 17.5 for. And what I get worried about is because this is going to be a doubleheader because they were rained out last night. What I get a little concerned about is that to save the bullpen, because they do have Woods Richardson pitching at night. And Woods Richardson, I mean, at least has more potential to get tossed around. So I can see Ober potentially pitching to contact right now in this first game because, yeah, the Twins haven't played since Sunday, but you don't want to burn through your bullpen in game one of a doubleheader, especially when you play again tomorrow. So I just kind of left it be. Luzardo ladder play. I don't ladder guys typically when it's a makeup of a doubleheader. Same premise here for Luzardo and for Nola's pitching second, but same premise for the first game of a doubleheader. There's also the potential rain should be cleared out, but it's just there's so much rain going on over there that for me, I can't get there. I can't get there with anything really with Luzardo because of everything I just mentioned with the doubleheader, potential for rain. Cardinals are a high contact team anyway. So Eric J, good morning and welcome. Appreciate you joining and saying Skubal averaging 7.5. No, I mean, maybe, but my thought on that one is kind of when I talked about Skubal. I think that if you put it at an 8.5, I think that you're really going to be overweight on you're I don't know if you're going to get enough over money on that one. You do have some people from the public that'll just blast it, but I think what we found, especially when you look at guys that have been lined at 8.5 before, like I've gone back and look at guys like when Strider was, like when DeGrom was, is that there's actually kind of a lack of over money coming in. So I think that the price on this is probably where it should be, not knowing what the Red Sox lineup is going to be. So it's I wouldn't say trappy, is more, it's public. It's very public because every public capper with a trend sheet is going to be on Skubal's over, but for good reason, because the Red Sox zone contact is just absolutely atrocious. And that's where Skubal lives. Thoughts on Yamamoto seeing plus money on the under? That's because the Ks are up. I think if I remember right, let me bring him up. Yoshi, yeah, it's on the under. Well, he's up from the last time when he was at Arizona, but the under, well, it depends on what book you look at, because FanDuel's hanging a 6.5, everybody else is hanging a 5.5, which usually indicates that there's a strong thought, at least right now, that he's going to get 6 exactly. His outs are up though. Outs are up to 18.5 for the first time this year, and he has been much better at home. So I think that the under is probably set that way for the 5.5 because of how good he's been at home. And yeah, that would be my thought, because when I look at the rest of Yamamoto's lines, I don't see anything that's like really amiss, other than the outs are up to 18.5, which would indicate that he's probably going to go pretty deep on this one. And like I said, has been pretty good at home. So for me, I would probably be looking at either an over or nothing on this one. And Cover King saying for the Cardinals and for the Phillies, rain will be fine for game 2. All right. Other action, other looks, other leans, other thoughts that I had for today. If you are looking for some plus money for a money line, one that's an early game, I think that the Brewers can make some sense. That's actually, even though there have been, the bets are pretty split 50-50, this has actually gone down by almost 25 cents. I think that Brewers are in a good spot to take one today, so that's at plus 104. If you want to gamble a little bit more, the Nationals tonight at plus 150. That's a little bit more of a gamble. And I think that was the only one. The other one, interestingly enough, that I put him on there to just take a shot and just maybe take a look and see if I could come up with a play. And then I crossed him off because of who it is. But Patrick Corbin's K line is Rocky's Tax Plus today. And usually when guys get Rocky's Tax Plus, they usually hit their strikeout props. So if you want to put Patrick Corbin and yes, hold your nose when you do it and hold back your vomit when you do it. But if you want to take Patrick Corbin's 6+ strikeouts and put it with something else, or even 5+ strikeouts and put it with something, I'm not going to do anything with him to win the game or record the win or earn runs because of who it is. But he actually does have the kind of stuff that can strike out the Rockies. From a totals perspective, a couple totals that caught my eye were, it's chalky, but the Red Sox team total, Red Sox first 5 team total, again, going back to Skubal just absolutely having a day. And with the line going up for Yamamoto's outs being at 18.5 for the first time this year, I think that the Athletics team total under or first 5 team total under also make sense. Last but not least, a couple of quick ones. I do think that my Timberwolves obviously close the series out tonight. 10.5 is a big number in a closeout game, especially for sometimes how we can have a few lapses. So I'm not going to do anything about that. I do like the Timberwolves team total over for this one. I think that they have, except for spurts, have actually figured out this Golden State zone. I've been shooting much better at home. So I will, sounds game 1 of that series, but Timberwolves team total over. And then for the other one, for the early game, I actually, even though it's in Boston without Tatum, I would actually look and just say that I would look to take the Knicks. I would look to take the Knicks to close the series out, and I actually might go with just their straight money line at plus 158. Boston looks defeated in more ways than one, and now that you lose your leader, going home to me isn't going to make a whole lot of discernible difference. I think one last one. Kid Keon, welcome in, my friend. Thank you so much for joining. Thoughts on Mitchell Parker? I looked at him actually because I saw that at least one book was hanging a 3.5 on there, and his outs were still down at 16.5 again. The other thing that was a little interesting was hits went down to 4.5 last start, back up to 5.5 this start. So if you're looking at him, I would look to play the under, but if you're playing the under 4.5, I certainly wouldn't pay minus 170,000, whatever it is, juice. I would probably look to maybe hitch that to something else. So any of the other things that we talked about today, like Warren 5+, Lodolo 5+, something like that, you could probably look to do that and hitch that to the under 4.5. The Braves have been better swinging the bat, but they're still not a team that I fully trust from a low number like 4.5, even to a pitcher that is not a strikeout pitcher like Parker. So, but minus 160, minus 175 is just that's a really gross price to have to pay. So I would hook it with something else to get a better price for yourself. All right. That is going to do it today. Thank you, everybody, for being here, for being with us. Just going to run through the chat one more time to say thank you to everybody. I didn't even see. Oh, I saw Sharpie, man. What's up? I didn't even see that one. That one snuck in late. Need the rain to stay away so I can bet Luzardo in a 3-0 spot, averaging 8 Ks a lineup versus a lineup that chases. Yep. Oh, that would be the way that I would do it. I got Skubal in for 7. Romaro, welcome in too. Would that be like getting 7, or you got him like to get 7 strikeouts like as a bet? Then, but Sharpie, Romaro, Roger, Mom Who Bets, Cover Kings, Gooner, Eric J, and Kid Keon. Thank you all so much for being here. If you haven't yet, please give this a like, please give it a share, give it subscribe to the Daily Bread Network on YouTube, and best of luck if you're tailing any of this. Back with you tomorrow.